BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with OCR Buddy and OCR Strong. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related. Welcome to BeastNet.
So how are you doing, girly?
I mean, I'm holding up.
I get that.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry for, I know how tough that can be.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about today? So I got you here.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know you saw it, but if the listeners have seen it, I raced at Infinity over the weekend.
I see you're still wearing the band.
Yes, I'm still wearing the band. It's been a day, so I literally put on my shirt and my headband this morning and then just kept going.
Well, you
But
earned it.
Well, thank you. So I booked the shortest trip known to man.
I saw that. That's impressive that you made it all.
Yeah, I actually booked the delay insurance that was gonna recoup like any losses if my flight was delayed like 2 hours, because
Mhm.
if I was getting delayed 2 hours, I was not making it to the race. So I'm like, if I was flying Spirit because it was the last one out on Friday and it was the cheapest, I'll give them that. And I said, if it's delayed, like Spirit usually gets delayed, I'm not going to make it. And I would much rather just get the little money I spent back.
Yeah.
But I booked it because when I had picked Titan up after Philly, I actually had gotten a call from my parents kind of panicking because they saw him limping and he wasn't really acting like himself. So they called me on a Tuesday and I rushed to their house after my clients. I had like a 4 hour gap. It's an hour each way to get to my
Mhm.
parents' house. So I rushed up there, picked him up, brought him back. As soon as I walked in the door, he like perked up, his tail was wagging, he was his happy self, no limping at all. My mom was like, that is the happiest I've seen him since he's been here. Like, okay. So I think when I dropped him off there, I mean, he ended up being up by my parents for like 2 weeks because I dropped him off the weekend before. Then the next weekend I went to Philly and then I picked him up the Tuesday after. So he was with them for like maybe 2.5 weeks. And I was like, clearly like doggy depression. He's 13. He's much happier in his house where I can, you know, come in and he can see me. He's not having to deal with the other dogs, whatever. So I said, I'm going to book the latest flight out on Friday, the earliest flight back on Sunday, hire a dog walker to come in multiple times over those days, and he can just stay at home and be comfortable. Well, then that weekend, he was completely fine. I had a friend in town. He was so happy. We went to the beach. He was walking. He was wagging his tail. He was playing. He was Titan. Then the following weekend, I woke up in the middle of the night for no reason. And I looked over at him and he was just panting uncontrollably. So I rushed him to the emergency vet, found out he had a very aggressive form of lymphoma. And we got him on steroids and antibiotics because he was 13.
Yeah.
Like, with how aggressive it was, there was no promise that we could have even gotten him into an oncologist fast enough. And the cost of diagnostics was, well, we're confirming what we kind of already know. His lymph nodes were so incredibly swollen. It felt like he had rocks across his entire neck. And yeah, we got him on antibiotics and steroids. The first couple of days were rough. I said, Titan, please just make it to the weekend. Let's let you go run and play up by my parents, see Rosie, their dog, like go see my niece, go see my parents. Said, just make it through the weekend. And then at day like 4 or 5, he perked up. He was wandering around the apartment. He was wagging his tail. He still couldn't play, couldn't really jump up on furniture anymore, which he had done the weekend before, like no problem. But he was happy. He was himself. I brought him up by my parents. I said, um, I put him out into the yard and he was running with the dogs. He was jumping in and out of his pool. Like we had been to the beach every single day that week. He was so happy just laying in the water. He was wandering up to the dogs at the dog beach. Like he was happy. My mom came out when she saw us and she said, Megan, that is the best he's looked in a really long time. Like, yeah, it's working. It's going really well. Then Saturday, he was struggling to stand up. His front paws were just splaying out. He was having a lot of trouble picking up his hind legs. I would have to like physically pick him up. And well, when I took him to the emergency vet, he was around 80 pounds. Then by Sunday, when we took him to the vet again, he was 69 pounds. And they said we can try to a higher dose of steroids, but they were asking like what was his quality of life on the steroids. They're like, was he still jumping on the furniture? Was he still playing? He said, no, he wasn't. And on Sunday, he didn't want to even move. Like he was just head down, sprawled on the floor. When you would get him to perk his head up, like he was his happy Titan, like he had his smile, he had his personality. You could tell he wanted to wag his tail. There was one time we were laying in the sunroom and we got him to stand up and he walked to my mom's big box of toys because my mom is a rover sitter as well.
Mhm.
And she had some of his toys in there and he went and he grabbed some toys and he was squeaking some toys and then he just laid down again. And we were like, yeah, he's ready. And I said, I made him a promise. I asked him to get through the weekend. And he did that. He still was giving me kisses as, they were putting him under. And Titan was never one to really show a lot of affection. And he laid his head on top of my arm, and that was it. So it was really tough.
Yeah.
Um,
I, yeah, I can imagine most people know, or if they don't, that right before I moved to Texas, I had a very similar thing happen with my dog Sam, who was what, 14, and we were gone for the weekend. Came home and he basically assumed he had a stroke because he couldn't walk. He was sliding on the floor. He was shaking, and then we kind of had to do the same. And luckily, we had a great vet out there who came to the house,
mhm,
and we were able to do it like on the back porch. But
yeah,
it was still, it's tough because I mean, people who don't have dogs and people who don't love their dogs, they become your family.
they are. I mean, I'm single in my 30s. Yeah. I got Titan when I was in grad school. Titan's really the only like family I had outside of like my extended family. Obviously, I have my
Yeah.
parents, I have my sisters, my nieces, nephews, but like, when the holidays come and you're like everybody's off with their little families, it's like it's me and Titan.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it really hurt. And oh, I haven't cried in a couple days. My
Well,
parents
that's
just
okay.
brought his ashes yesterday, and I still can't pull them out of the bag. But yeah, so this weekend, I said I'm still going. Like was fully prepared to cancel Infinity when I found out about the lymphoma. I was like, I can't leave Titan. Like it's not fair to him. I'm not going to be gone. But if I canceled, I canceled and I was going to lose out on the money, so I might as well wait and see. You know,
Hmm.
if he was doing a lot better and I felt like he could make it through the weekend, maybe I could have gone. Um, Obviously there was the other situation, but so I didn't cancel. And when unfortunately we did have to say goodbye, I spent all week literally just wandering around my apartment. Like, what am I supposed to do now? I can't even sit on the couch. I can't turn on the TV. I'm like, I sit at my desk and I'm like looking for more work to do because I'm like, I don't know what else to do. I can't bring myself to pick up his toys. You know, it was a big deal when I dumped his food bowl out finally, like washed it, put that away. And that was only because I didn't want it smelling up the house. Like I still have his food in his food bowl right now if I could. Um, so I was like, what else am I gonna do? Sit in my apartment alone all weekend when I could be racing? So I grabbed his bandana. I went off to Michigan. I didn't change my flights at all. So I got in, zero sleep before the race. Went out to Michigan and tied the bandana onto my bib, and I took off. And it was probably the most profound and incredible experience I've ever had. Um, I've never been one that like believed in like spirits and clairvoyance and any of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And like running for 8.5, 9 hours, it can get very lonely. So like,
Yeah.
I took off, we all started running together. I'm talking to people, and then we're all starting to space out. And I had a Bring Me the Horizon song stuck in my head that I was singing on and off. And then I would feel his bandana hitting my chest. And I mean, it's a big bandana. He was like an 80-pound dog. So it was like very clunky. And I'm like, I can feel it with every single step I take. And as I'm running, I would just say, I miss you. I love you. I'm doing this for you. I want to make you proud. And as I'm like thinking some of this before I can even like finish my thought, it like pops into my head where it's, I love you too. I miss you. I'm so proud of you. And it, I would almost start crying like happy tears because I could just feel his presence with me. And like to the point where I was having full conversations with him while I'm running, just
Yeah.
him telling me how, I made the right decision and thank you for 13 years. Thank you for loving me. Mom, I'm having so much fun with Murphy, my parents' dog, who passed away. And like, he was just, whenever it would start to get painful or like when I realized that I couldn't make 40 miles, which that is what I really want to talk about today. But when I realized I couldn't hit elite contender and like there was no way that I was going to be able to do it. And like
Mhm.
I was out on my 30th lap or what should be approximately 30-ish. Again, we're going to talk about all that.
Yeah.
I was coming down and I'm like, I have half an hour to get out on another lap. I'm like, I don't need to go on another lap. Like, I'm not going to hit elite contender. I told myself if I'm not going to hit elite contender, I've already hit contender status. Now I've hit it twice. Like, I don't need to log these miles. And then, like, as I'm thinking this, it pops in my head, like, do not quit. Like, Mom, you cannot give up on yourself. You've always said if there's time on the clock, you got to keep running. Like when it would start to hurt and I would slow down, or when I would walk, I'd hear, you got to get moving. Like, no, you are okay, you can keep going. Like, Mom, you got to keep going. And like I was like fighting back happy tears the entire time because it honestly felt like he was there running alongside me and he was pushing me the entire time.
Which is amazing. I mean, it's awesome. It's horrible what happened, but to have that, with you, have the bandana with you, everything else, and then just have that feeling like he's right there.
Yeah.
He's encouraging you. He's making sure that that he's okay.
Mean, I'm sad. I'm very sad. And it got to the point where, last week I was kind of getting upset and annoyed with people who maybe don't know me that well
Mhm.
or don't never knew Titan. They were messaging me offering their condolences, and I'm like, I appreciate every single person who saw it and was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, it's very well known, like Titan was my heart.
Yes.
He was more than a dog to me. He was like the most important thing in my life. And I appreciate people reaching out, but it got to a point where I was like, I don't want to be sad. Like Titan wouldn't want me to be sad. Like he was the healthiest dog for 13 years. I can count on one hand the amount of times I had to take him to the vet for something other than his like yearly checkup. And like the worst thing that ever happened to him medically was because of the vet, not because his body was like in any kind of position that it needed to go to the vet.
Yeah.
They almost killed him by trying to clip his nails when they had a very specific instruction, do not clip his nails without me in the room. They put cheese whiz on a tongue depressor and he swallowed the tongue depressor whole. Um,
Oh,
yeah. So that was the closest thing to any kind of an emergency we had for 13 years. And 13 years for a German Shepherd is amazing. So I'm very thankful for every single day we got to spend together. I mean, he was running with me up until he was 13.
mm,
So I am very blessed and I don't want to be sad because he's gone. Unfortunately, I knew he wasn't going to be around forever. He had a very great life and he didn't suffer. So I am very happy for the time we had together.
that's a great way to look at it. I mean, that's the hardest thing because I mean, at least I know for me, I spent months. I mean, pretty much till we sold the house and moved, expecting him to walk around the corner at any time, and slide
Hmm.
across the floor like he always did, or do whatever, or it's like I always said. And I mean, he was an asshole, but he was my asshole, you know. But so I mean, it was so sad when all of a sudden he wasn't there. And I mean, even now, living like in a whole nother house, states away, I still occasionally
Hmm.
like expect to see him come around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's tough, and you can always get because like I've got two new puppies, and everyone's like, "Oh, you got new puppies to replace," and it's like it's not replacements; they're additions. They're new puppies. Nobody will ever replace that
Yeah,
puppy, but I
exactly.
just got new puppies.
Yeah,
So
over the weekend, my dad was like, "So, are you gonna get a new dog?" I said, "I can't even think about that right now."
no,
I said, "It like I can't bring myself to pick his toys up. So don't talk to me about a new dog." I mean, I see things popping up all over the place about dogs, at the shelter and all of these dogs needing fostering, and I'm like, maybe I could think about like fostering a dog, for a month or two because that's like in my nature, in my heart. My parents foster dogs.
yeah.
Like I could do the rover thing because, that's something that we do. But I'm not ready to, open my heart to a new dog in the same way that I had Titan. I need time to kind of figure myself out again
Mhm. Yeah, and it's a
before
tough
that.
thing. Like for me, I mean, it was over a year before, and it was supposed to be one, and just fell in love with two at the vet or at the pound and brought home two little ones. But
Yeah,
you know, and that's it. It has to feel right. If you just
yeah,
randomly go out and get a dog, it feels wrong.
right,
It has to feel right. It can't do it just to, like I said, replace because there's no replacing.
right, exactly.
It has to feel right. Most time, like most of my dogs, I randomly found.
Yeah,
Sam that I had for 14 years was a runt that basically they were going to get just throw away. And I'm like, I'll take him.
yeah.
So it just, I happened to end up with him. And just about most of the animals I have are ones I just happen to end up with. So, I mean, it'll happen
Yeah.
when it's
No,
right.
I know that I'm gonna have more dogs in my life. I firmly know that.
Oh, yeah.
That is not even a question. I can't think about it right now.
Yeah. It's
I
a tough, you can't.
Yeah. And honestly, looking ahead to the year, I am booked solid at least until mid-July, and then booked solid all of August, most of September, most of October, into November. Like I'm booked and busy with work. I'm booked and busy now that I'm the development chair for USA OCR.
Mhm.
I'm booked and busy with my own racing. And, one of these days I'm going to figure out how to have a personal life
Someday.
someday.
Well, and I mean, the thing is like you already learned this last weekend. He's going to be with you at a race.
Yeah. He's going to be with me everywhere I go. And I already found a tattoo artist. I need to reach out to them, but I already found a tattoo artist that um I want to get a Titan tattoo. Like I need to contact her, get that scheduled. But yeah, like I know I can talk to him anywhere I go.
Mhm.
I'm gonna bring him with me everywhere I go, and just thinking about him warms my heart. And I want to keep that.
And I think that's the one thing for me that it took me a long time to remember. Like, even with people and animals, we have a tendency to focus too much on how sad we are that they're not with us anymore,
Hmm.
and we forget all the amazing things we had when they were. And I think that's one of the things that, a takeaway that, I mean, that's beautiful that you have here. You keep wanting to remember how amazing Titan was and how much joy he brought to you. And unfortunately, he won't be there, but you still have all those memories.
Hmm.
And he's still going to be in your brain. He's still part
Yeah.
of you. He's still part of your heart. He's still, part of that. And I mean, like I said, I think we forget that with people and animals that they may not be part of our lives now, but we still had all of those amazing, amazing times
Yeah.
that we can remember.
I think for me, I don't know if I've told you this before, but I have always identified as a tragic hero if we think back to like our old school literary classes and talking about the differences between tragedy and comedy. I always identified as a tragic hero. There has been so much tragedy and bad stuff that has happened in my life that is why I am the way I am now. I live every day to its fullest. I make the most of everything. And, I don't ever want to sit and become complacent because it can all end tomorrow.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'm very sad that Titan is gone. I miss him. I want him back here. But I am so grateful for the time that I had and for the life that he was able to give me. And obviously, I gave him. But he touched me so much and provided me with so much love that I am so grateful for that. And, again, I knew he wasn't going to last forever. So I want to think back on the good because really, with how quickly everything happened, I don't have all that much bad to think about. I learned
Yeah.
about, the lymphoma, and instantly I was in the cherish every single day because now you are on borrowed time. And that's what I did.
Yeah. Which I mean, in some ways, like you said, it's almost a blessing or whatever in a way that it did happen so fast because now you don't have. Because that's one of the things like I can remember, like even with like I said, with people and animals. To me, I'll be honest, I get sadder almost sometimes with animals than I do with people. But I've had those situations with people where they had some long, drawn out illness,
Mhm.
and then unfortunately, most of your memories are the most recent of the illness
Yeah,
and everything
exactly.
that went there, and you just have the memories of even you said the last couple weekends.
Yeah,
Still going to the beach, hanging out, doing whatever with your amazing puppy.
yeah. My friend that came to visit, I was telling him what happened, and he also has senior dogs. And, before all of this would happen, he would talk about, I think it's almost time for my dogs or whatever else. So when this happened with Titan, I said, I thank you for coming up and meeting him. Like, thank you for spending that last weekend with us. And he was like, I loved every second. Like, Titan was such a great dog. I'm so happy I was able to meet him. And like, I'm grateful for that because that was honestly one of the best weekends we had had in a long time.
Yeah.
And Titan gave us that. He he let us walk him around the Sugar Bowl in South Boston, which is like a 2 mile around the harbor. And the last time we had done it, he had to lay down multiple times, but he gave us one last walk around there, and that was his favorite place in Boston. So I'm grateful for that.
Hmm.
But that is not what I wanted to talk about, but it feels good to talk about that. So thank you.
And it feels good to get out of your get that out and talk about it. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yes. So what I really wanted to talk about, Tough Mudder. Are like, do they just hate us?
Yeah.
Like, so I think we talked about it last time. There have been 0 elite contenders at
Mhm.
the US Endurance Series in 2024. So I talked to you after Philly and said 0 elite contenders. They made the loop just short enough that like nobody can really hit it. And then they like made the transition super long, and that transition does not count into your mileage. Well, Michigan,
Oh, makes sense.
very, I mean, I wouldn't say it was flat. I still got like 1,000 feet of vert for the 10-mile course. But compared to Philly, which was like, 2,000-3,000 for 5 miles, like, I don't know. I'm just ballparking, but it was much flatter than Philly. Very runnable, very attainable for what we were all looking to go there to do.
Mhm.
So they had the 10-mile course, and then they had the 3 to 5 mile course. Do you know how long the 3 to 5 mile course came out to be?
What, 7?
4.8. Do you know how long the transition was from finish to start?
Probably a good mile.
A quarter of a mile, but it doesn't count towards your mileage, of course. So their start line closes for the 10-mile after 6 hours. And then you have the rest of the time. You have 2 more hours to start the 3 to 5 mile loops.
Hmm.
So realistically, I was running my miles or my laps a little over 2 hours for the 10-mile loops. And then so I could do realistically 3 10-mile laps. And then I was going to have to run the 3 to 5 mile loops. People asked at the start if I want elite contender status. So if I want 40 or 45 miles, because 40 for women, 45 miles for men. Same with, contender, which is 25 women, 30 men.
Mhm.
Do I have to run 44 miles? Or, do I have to run one additional loop than what we would realistically think? They said yes. So women would have had to have run either 3 10-mile loops and then 3 of the 3 to 5 mile loops. Men would have had to have run 4 of the 10-mile loops and 2 of the 3 to 5 mile loops to get elite contender. You know what the top male finisher got for their mileage?
I'm guessing not enough. Like 30?
44.8.
Jesus.
44.8. And
You
they
needed 45.
would not give them elite contender status. They're running a quarter of a mile to get from the finish line to the start line for every single loop. They were crossing with over 46 miles. When I finished out, I went to the race center and I was handing in my timing chip, and I looked down and my watch says, 35 something. And I said, just so you know, I'm going to count this as 35 miles. And one of the staff said, count it as more than 35 miles because you had to do the distance to the start line, but then you also have to go back to your car. I said, okay, so if that's your mentality, why can't you give people elite contender status? Like, I'm talking to, other coaches, other athletes who have ran Tough Mudder, like, oh, they're probably just gonna revise it later in the year because they're realizing nobody's getting elite contender. Instead of moving the goalpost at the end of the year, why are you moving the goalpost during the races? I mean, you run a Spartan 10K and you're counting it as a 10K regardless of if it's, the 6.2 miles or it's 7 miles or if it's 5.8.
Yeah.
Why can't we just say you're going to do a 10-mile loop and you're going to do a 5-mile loop? Because we're still getting the mileage, and still 0 people have gotten elite contender status at any of the US Tough Mudders. I finished first for female just under 35 miles. We had said it, there were 3 men who all were within 1 mile of elite contender status, and they're not giving it to them. This is a problem.
Oh, it's a huge problem because the thing is, like you said, they'll, adjust it later in the year. But if they adjust it later in the year, are they going to retroactively go back
Right.
and give it to the people who should have gotten it? Or are they just going to say, okay, from here forward, which knowing Spartan, who owns Tough Mudder, it's going to be from here forward, we're going to do this. And you're going to be looking at all these people going, I was a 0.2 of a mile off.
I have put in 70 miles over 2 races for Tough Mudder. And I'm not saying, hey, give me elite contender status. I want to earn it. But okay, the Celtics are playing for the NBA championship tonight, game 5, missing it right now, whatever. If they aren't behind the 3-point line, they're getting 2 points. We get it. You're not moving that line and being like, oh, you thought it was a 3-pointer, but no, actually, we just moved it back. Or, hey, we're going to make this a little short for you, but it turns out you were short, so now we have to go and retroactively redo it.
Yeah.
Mileage is mileage is mileage. There have been marathons and 5Ks, 10Ks, whatever else that maybe didn't come out to that exact distance, whether they were short, whether they were long. You still count them as that race total. Why is it different with Tough Mudder?
Especially too when you have a quarter of a mile between the finish and the start, when they're doing loops. You would think that it would be okay, maybe a 1/10 of a mile, maybe, but it should be okay. Finish line's here, start line's like 5 feet over there.
They're giving elite contender status to top 3 overall men and women at Spartan Ultras. Spartan Ultras are not Tough Mudder events. Tough Mudder events are do as many miles as you can. They shouldn't translate. I shouldn't have to say, oh, well, now I guess I got to go run a Spartan Ultra if I want elite contender status. Just like I shouldn't be talking to somebody in the starting corral who got 24.8 miles this past weekend, but when she was starting out said, oh, well, it's okay, I already got a contender status because I ran a Spartan Ultra this year. No, she should have had an easier time getting the contender status at, well, it was easier for her to get it at Spartan than at a Tough Mudder event. It should be Tough Mudder only.
Well, and then you're, like you said, elite contender status, you do a Spartan Ultra and you're the top 3. But a Spartan Ultra is only 30 miles.
Right, exactly. I mean, you could go out to Fayetteville or, I don't know, Dallas or wherever the flatter, quote unquote, flatter ultras are. You could run a 5-6 hour 50K and be good. That is not getting you ready for World's Toughest Mudder.
No.
You're not running through the night with a headlamp. You're not running lap upon lap upon lap, learning how to transition between and, testing out the obstacles or whatever else. It's a different monster running the endurance series for Tough Mudder. You should not be getting an easier route to contender or elite contender through a Spartan. And it's crazy to say that it's easier to qualify through a Spartan than a Tough Mudder, because for years Spartan had the tougher obstacles, the tougher terrain. But now, because Spartan is do 2 laps and call it a day, here we are, like, slugging away for 8.5 hours in the blistering heat
Yeah.
while battling, regular mutters on course. And we still can't hit elite contender status.
Yeah. That's insane.
It's horrible.
The biggest problem is, it's like we've mentioned before in the past, Tough Mudder and Spartan, even though they're owned by the same company, need to be separate.
Yes.
And the problem is they keep trying to combine them together in ways that is going to ruin them. The best part about Tough Mudder and Spartan, they were two completely different things. I mean, I can remember years ago, you were either a Spartan or you were a Tough Mudder. You typically weren't both.
Right.
There was some of us that crossed over, but I didn't cross over. I did Spartans for 4 years before I finally decided, okay, I'll do a Tough Mudder.
Same here. I didn't do my first Tough Mudder until 2021.
Yeah. And that's the big thing. Most people, it was one or the other. And now that they're together, they're trying to get you to do both of them. And it's like, I get that, but at the same time, if you start making them so similar, what's the point?
Do you want to know what the penalty was? The first missed obstacle from this weekend. Do you know what the penalty was?
I'm guessing burpees.
30 burpees.
Jesus.
I don't know what the rest of the penalties were because I didn't have to do any. First time ever in a Tough Mudder race that I didn't have to do any penalties. But yeah, they had up to 7 obstacles that you could fail to do penalties at, except nobody knew where the 7th obstacle was. We never saw it. Yeah, it was so bizarre. I don't even know what to say anymore. The only other thing I'll say is Tough Mudder. If you're going to give elite contender to the top 3 overall in Spartan, why would you not at the very least give elite contender to the top 3 finishers of all of your endurance series races? Although then I would petition and say, hey, I did just as many miles as the 4th place finisher at Philly. But yeah, it's a little, if you wanted to throw that in. But hey, I just finished first overall for females this weekend, which I've never done that before in any race. So I am going to celebrate that proudly.
You should, because that's amazing. But it's one of those things, like you said, you just finished first, but yet you did not get elite contender status.
Right. But if I would have gone and finished first at Colorado Springs this weekend, which I haven't seen the finisher's time yet, and I will be very upset if the top finisher times are less than an infinity.
Oh, I'm sure
Because
they're going to be.
I ran for longer.
Well, they're going to have to. I mean, the top finishers of most of those are in the 6-hour range, right?
Right.
Typically. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it would be, I would,
Yeah.
it's definitely going to be less.
I'd
Less than the time.
understand if like Colorado Springs is a little bit more because like I don't want to run at altitude. I'd hope that there's some kind of elevation there. But
Yeah.
like that the Fayetteville Ultra, the people that finished top 3 and got elite contender status did not run as long as I ran on Saturday.
Oh, no, not at all.
But again, like I don't want Tough Mudder to have to move the goalpost after the fact. I want them to stop moving the goalpost on race day. We are planning out our races based on, what does our lap need to be to make sure that we can get out on a 3rd lap, a 4th lap before they close that lap start time. And if, we are pacing for 12-minute miles, which that was my goal. Whole 12-minute miles. That is a good solid pace with obstacles to hit 40 miles. But to learn, no, you don't have to get 40 miles. You have to get 44.8. But if you make it through 40 and get onto your last lap, you have to still finish it. You can't just go that little bit to get to that 40. You have to go out on a whole nother lap, which is going to take you another 40 to 80 minutes, depending on how you're feeling and how the course is looking.
Yeah.
And that messes everybody up. I do not want to have to do math while I am racing, but I was out there mathing the entire time, like, oh my gosh, okay, how long does it take me to go this? And how long do I have to stay in pit? And okay, my pace can't drop any below this and whatever else. And we were all thinking that. You know how many people I talked to were going for elite contender when they figured out they couldn't do it? They just did 3 laps and called it a day. Nice
Yeah.
little fun run.
So I just looked it up and you're not gonna like the answer.
What is it?
You already did it in 7 hours.
What? Like, Tough Mudder, this is a problem.
Yeah, Yara was the female top female.
I mean,
And
congratulations to her. I'm not mad at her.
I mean, yeah, I love Yara. Yara is amazing.
Kudos, amazing. So proud of you, girl. Go crush it.
7 hours and 43 minutes.
My problem is not with her.
Top
My
female.
problem is Tough Mudder.
Top male 504.
Why is that worth elite contender status? And yet, here we are finishing top 3 overall in endurance series, and nobody is getting elite contender. We are running for longer.
The third woman was at 805.
I finished in 8:27 with approximately 35 miles.
Yep.
We are doing more obstacles. I'm assuming we're doing more obstacles throughout that day. We are doing more miles for longer periods of time. And we are not allowed elite contender status or contender status. Again, there are so many people that are missing out on contender status for this exact same reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, how many people were running in the competitive ways? We also
13.
have to look at that. 13.
13 women.
That's it?
Yep. 13 women in the competitive ultra. And the longest was 11 hours, 52 minutes.
So, I'm not mathing. I did too much math already.
Yeah. And the men, it was 62. So a total of 75.
So you had to finish in the top 23% to become an elite contender. And if you reach age group podium, I believe it's age group podium, you are automatically a contender for World's Toughest Mudder. So pretty much
every woman.
Everybody. Then. But yet you have women busting their ass, men too, out at infinities and toughest, only missing their mileage because of poor course design. And they're not getting it, even though they're logging more miles and more time on feet and more obstacles.
So every woman that raced in Colorado and the ultra competitive that finished got at least in the top 3 of her, either the top 3 overall or the top 3 in their age group.
Congratulations to them. Again, it is,
which is amazing.
I'm so proud of every single person who went out and raced in any single race. But if you are in this category that we're talking about, saying, you know, you placed at Colorado Springs, you are a contender, kudos to you. I hope you take it, you come to World's Toughest Mudder, you crush World's Toughest Mudder.
Yes.
We in no way are criticizing you. This is a problem for Tough Mudder, though.
Because the other question is, how many of them do you think are going to go do it?
Not very many.
Because a lot of them, because I don't know. I was trying to think. I don't think I've ever seen Yara do any of those. She does Spartan pretty much exclusively.
Yeah, they're Spartans, and nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean, everyone has their thing, and some of us do both. But I mean, a lot of those that are getting that, you know, they're earning elite competitive status and Tough Mudder, they're like, I'm never going to do one.
Yeah. They don't understand it. You know, I talked to some people this weekend who said, oh, well, I've only ever done Spartans. And like having to ask for clarifications on how to do some of the obstacles. They're like, I haven't done this before. It's like, kudos to you for getting out and trying something new. Very proud of you. This is so awesome to see. I encourage you to keep doing that. But like, Tough Mudder and Spartan are 2 totally different things.
And they need to say that way.
Tough Mudder is supposed to be a team event, you know? When somebody offers to give you a hand, you turn around and give them a hand right back.
Yeah.
And you're not getting that at Spartan.
No, especially not in the competitive weight. I think one of the things that stuck with me the most in Tough Mudder was, sorry, um, in Tough Mudder was watching when they used to have the actual real competitive
Oh,
waves.
are you going to
And
talk about Lindsay?
yeah, when she was ahead of the two people in front of
That
her or behind her, and she turned around and helped both of them.
that was the pinnacle of Tough Mudder. Anytime anybody talks about
Oh,
Tough Mudder, the meaning behind Tough Mudder,
it
they
was
talk
Lindsay.
about Lindsay at Tougher Mudder Championships in Seattle when Lindsay ran up Everest.
Yep.
And she was standing there at the top. She helped Rose, and there was one other woman, and I forget who it was, so I apologize. But she helped the two of them up. Those two continued on, and Lindsay had to catch back up, and she still won.
Yeah. That was the biggest difference between Tough Mudder and Spartan was that because you would never see that in a Spartan race because one, you get disqualified basically if you turn around to help somebody.
Yeah,
If someone helps you, that's a disqualification in the competitive and everything else. In Spartan, in Tough Mudder, it's like no, there's certain obstacles you can't do very well without help.
yeah. It's all about teamwork and camaraderie.
Hmm.
And that is one of the biggest things about Tough Mudder. You have to understand that, and you have to, you know how to plan for all of that.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's like the last time I did, I remember one of the people's like, "Let's hurry up and go," and we're at the blocks, and I'm like, "But we've got to help the people that are. If we don't help the people coming up, there's like two of them. There's no way they're getting over this. So
Yeah,
we got to help them, and then they help us, and then it's kind of a thing there. And the person's looking at me like, "Huh?" Because they had only done Spartans. I'm like, "No, you gotta help.
yeah.
It's just the way it works."
I this past weekend they had Block Ness Monster in a pit that was shallow enough that you could actually jump up and grab the top and pull yourself over. So I
Hmm.
was able to do it on my own and could have done it on my own the entire time. When I got in, I think the second time, there was a girl in there on her own struggling, first time mudder, not really sure what to do. And me and another Infinity had gotten at the same time. And we're like, do you need help? And she's like, yeah, I don't know what to do. And between us, we couldn't really get it flipping. So I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump up, pull myself up, and then as as gravity is pulling down, you hop on. And she's like, no, no, just go. Like you're infinity, just go. And I said, no. I got up and I turned around, and as it's spinning, I kept crawling to the top. And you give it like a good 2 turns before you get off and go on to the next one and help the next
Hmm.
people. Because the more people you have holding from the top, pulling down the other way, the more you're going to be able to spin it. And that
Yeah.
happened every single time. It's not a get up and over and out as quickly as you can. It's, if you can get up without it spinning, go and help on the other side.
Yeah. And I mean, there's some obstacles where you just do yourself, but
Yeah.
there's so many of them that are like you without help. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I helped a girl on my last lap get over Mutterhorn because nobody else was there, and she's standing up there and she's looking down, she's like, do you need help? And actually one of my clients had just finished, and he's like, do you want me to jump over the fence and come give you a knee? Said, no, no, it's fine, I don't need a knee. I said, but if you could offer me your hand. And I jumped up and she grabbed my hand and I was able to get my leg up. I'm like, I could have probably climbed up Mutterhorn on my own. I've done it before. It was just it was just that little bit of aid to help get my leg up as I'm cramping after 35 miles
Hmm.
that helped me to finish out the race. Like, could have done Mutterhorn, could have done Berlin Walls, I mean, I did do Block Ness. Like, I didn't need the help this time, but that's part of Tough Mudder. And if
It
you
is.
offer me the assistance, yeah, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And
And
I am going to return the favors.
that was one thing that always got me when you get people that came over from Tough Mudder to Spartan who were like, oh, wait, we're not supposed to help.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you're competitive, no, but if you're open, do whatever you want. But, you know, Because I was always open, so I'd help people. When I did
Right.
competitive, I mean, I just remember it was completely different, where it was like you just went. You didn't stop and ask, help people. You just went, and it was all about you. And I'll be honest, I didn't like it.
Yeah. It's totally different. Like the mentality, the mindset, the community, the camaraderie,
Hmm.
it's all completely different. And like the community atmosphere and the camaraderie is why everybody loves Tough Mudder so much. That despite the changes Spartan has made, that part has not gone away.
No.
And that is, I mean, that's why I came into it. There's nothing left for me at Spartan. They're not giving us new obstacles.
Mm.
It's it's discouraging. And like I'll always gladly go back to Spartan, give us something new, something fresh. Give us more local races. I will train people for them. I will go race them.
Hmm.
But right now, I really love the format of run as far as you can for X amount of time. You know, the thought of a point to point ultra, like it doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy the endurance series and I love the the mental aspect of the endurance series, planning out, okay, how are you gonna go about the infinity? Do mathing the entire time and like, okay, if I get 3 laps in, I then need to do 3 of the 4.8 miles, or if I do 2 of the 10 miles, then I have to do 5. And like that was going through my head, and I was like, okay, which is technically more mileage? And it dawned on me that it was gonna end up becoming
Yeah.
44-ish miles no matter what. So I'm like, okay, I would need to do at least 3 long loops if I can do a short before I do my last long loop. I can feel out, see which is the better strategy that way. But then my body started to hurt and I didn't have a change of shoes that I probably needed. So I
Yeah.
ended up going on like the 4.8-mile loop for 3 times. And that's how I ended up taking first overall because so many people that went on that third 10-mile loop gassed themselves out and they called it after that.
Yeah.
But like you strategize for the overnight toughest races, you strategize for world's toughest mudder. Like there is no real strategizing when it comes to a Spartan Ultra. You go,
No,
you do
you just
your
keep moving.
loop, you get into transition, you go back out.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, you just go. You go. I mean, even for me, I just did North Carolina, what, a month and a half or something ago, and that was it.
Yeah,
Even after every other part of me had failed and I was having total problems with my legs, I just kept moving.
yeah,
And that's the only strategy. When we did World's Toughest Muddy, you had to think about, okay, how many miles do we want? Because we had an adaptive athlete. We wanted the 25 at least for the adaptive. But,
yeah,
so we had to think about that. How do we want to do it? So we did the
mhm,
25, took a nap for a couple hours, and came out and did the last lap.
yeah,
You know?
exactly. I mean, this time through, I would come into the pit and I would see everybody, changing whatever they needed to change, eating, doing whatever they needed to do. And I would come in, I would say, okay, I'm going out for 10 miles. So I should have, you know, at least 2 different things to eat. And which hydration do I want? Okay, grab, go, finish that out. Okay, take my garbage out, put it in with my stuff. And what am I grabbing this time? Or can I take a quick shot of applesauce? And like, I didn't have to carry a million and one things. I could keep
Hmm.
it all in a vest and I knew I was going to be back in an hour or two.
And see,
And
that's the
like,
difference. Like when you do the Spartan Ultras, you have to figure, okay, what am I going to need for the full, 15 miles?
yeah, and that's great. Like, that is amazing. You have to
Hmm.
have a much more solid transition. And like, if you make the wrong decision at transition, like you're screwed. Whereas at least a Tough Mudder, you can recover.
Hmm.
But like, there's also an art to that as well.
But like I said, it's two different, and that's the biggest thing to remember. We're
Yeah.
talking about two different races, two different strategies, two different types of races. And why do you get the same thing.
Right. I mean, it's the same complaint we had when Spartan decided to do their 24-hour ultra championships. And it's like, but you don't have timed ultras. Why are you giving a championship for a format that you don't have races for? Same complaint I'm going to have about their 3K and their 100-meter course this year. Why are you having championships for races that you don't actually have competitions for?
Mhm.
They luckily went back to their ultra format world championship. Okay, you go, you do your 50K, call it a day. First one to cross the finish line, first one to cross the finish line. But when I crossed the finish line this past weekend at Infinity, and I'm handing over my timing chip and they're counting my bands, and they're kind of sort of showing you like the screen where people are placing, but kind of not. I said they had it starting at women number 2, and I didn't see my name, and I saw all of these other miles, and I was like, hey, can you tell me where I finished? She's like, no, actually I can't, because there are people still out on course. I'm like, yeah, but none of them can pass me. Just tell me that I finished first. But like, they
Yeah.
couldn't, because there were still people out there, and in a true 24-hour, it's not about the first person to cross the finish line. It's about the person who has the most miles when that finish line closes.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter that you finished an hour ago.
Yeah.
You have to wait to see what happens at the end of it and see if anybody else decided to do another lap.
And that is why I will always go out as long as there is time left on the clock. The start line is open and I can get back before the finish line closes. Hell yeah, I'm doing another lap,
Yeah.
because there are other people with that same mentality. You're telling me contender status is at 25 miles? Well, if I hit contender status and I want to finish above all the other people who are like, I got contender status, I'm good, I'm going to go out on the 30th. But then there are going to be people with the same mindset as me who are like, well, I did one lap over contender status
Hmm.
because I want to be above the people who are doing not necessarily the bare minimum, but they hit their contender status. That was their goal. They're good.
Hmm.
Okay, the next step up. No, I want to be above that person too. It's like, getting your dirty brown bib at World's Toughest Mudder. You got your 50. You want to go wear it out on course. You want to show people that I hit that goal, but I'm not done yet. I want more.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing for me. I've got the 29th or something like that, which somehow I messed that all up and got the wrong weekend for flights, but I fixed that eventually.
Oh
Well, my
no.
wife fixed it, not me. But so I'm doing the CSU, the 24-hour event in Seattle that I do every year. So, and that's the same mindset where you have to have, because it's a laps, but you pick different loops. Well, it's not just one loop, it's different options. And that's going to be the part. Luckily for me, I have a really good team. And my one friend Chris, her wife Serena, pretty much stays she doesn't race, but she stays at camp and takes care of us
Yep.
when we come in, and she does all the math for us. So we'll come in, she's like, okay, because of this, you need to go do this loop because it's going to give us the most points.
And that's awesome.
But
That's
it's
so
like,
great.
but it's like that whole idea of strategy of, like you said, in Tough Mudder, you kind of have that strategy of, okay, how many loops am I going to do? Should I go back out for another? Should I do this? Should I change socks? Should I do everything else? Where Spartan is, once again, is different.
But also, like, you think about it, Infinity, you have it during the day, you have two different choices of laps. You also only are given this little bitty space for your stuff. They technically don't have pit crews. You are self-supported that entire time. So you have to strategize to self-support for
Mhm.
upwards of 9 hours while mathing and
Yeah.
holding on to these bands, doing your penalties, running all of your specific miles, strategizing, like all this stuff. Then you go to the 12-hour race. You can have a pit space like you will for a World's Toughest Mudder. You're going to be racing overnight. You have to factor in, okay, when do I need to eat? When do I need to change into my wetsuit? When do I need to change my shoes? When do I need to change the batteries on my headlamp? Do I need to take a nap? How am I going to regulate my body temperature if I start to get hypothermia?
Mhm.
And then, oh, we can help people on obstacles. And wait, what? There are people actually just sitting at obstacles to help you?
Yeah.
Like, how does this all work? And, with Infinity, you have 8 hours to start your laps. At Toughest Mudder, you have 12 hours to finish your last lap. And like, there are different rules for all of these different events, but they're all preparing you for World's Toughest Mudder.
Mhm.
It just, it blows my mind.
But at least they're somewhat close. But like you said, as we keep saying, if I qualify for World's Toughest Mudder only because I was the top 3 in an ultra, how was that getting the person ready for World's Toughest?
Yeah.
It's not. It's like, okay, you earned the elite status, but really you've never done a Tough Mudder.
Congratulations, you just ran a 50K in 6 hours. Let's see what you can do in 6 hours as the World's Toughest Mudder. No way you're coming in first.
No.
You stop at after 6 hours?
You're done.
Congratulations. But also, like, you're not even getting your finisher headband, because if you're stopping after 6 hours, you're not hitting that time requirement
Yeah.
to be a 24-hour finisher. So,
Yeah.
like, you should have been strategizing. Probably should have gone and run a toughest to figure out, how to race for a few hours, take a nap, wake up in time to go and finish out the course.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, I do that when I train. Fit Challenge has their 24, 32-hour race. Last year, I volunteered for a portion of the day. I went out and I ran after dark, came back in around midnight, slept in my car. I have my truck tent, set up my trunk tent, slept in my truck tent, woke up at 6 a.m., went out and did another 2 hours of running. And
Yeah.
that was all just in case I needed to take a nap at World's Toughest Mudder.
Yeah,
Because
because
I had
World's
to
Toughest, it's
prepare
what? You have to do one lap,
after
right?
like 7 or 8
Yeah,
or
you have to do
something.
one lap at the start, and then you have to do at least one more lap starting after 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Because that was a big argument we had last year where we were sitting there trying to figure out, okay, let's get up at 5 a.m. and do a lap. And it's like, if we get up at 5 a.m. and do a lap, we have to make sure we're back in time to start another lap after 7 and finish by,
I think you have to like finish it after 7 or something.
yeah, it's like finish after or whatever. But it was like we're trying to do the math of like, okay, because the finish line stopped at a certain point, that we have to make sure that we have time to start one after that time, but finish before, so you get that whole
Yeah.
strategy in your head that if you wait too long and you start too late, you may not finish in time. But if you start one too early, you may end up having to do another one, and it gets that whole math in your head where I was wide awake. And I feel like if I wasn't with the chair, I could have gone out and just done a couple more laps for fun because my brain was just, I was out there.
Yeah, it's all about strategy.
It is. I mean, amazingly, I hit 30 miles on that. I mean, my body was wrecked, but I did it, you know.
Amazing job. That is a huge accomplishment.
And I'm hoping for the CSU in a couple weeks. I want to hit at least 30. Actually, I'm hoping for more than that because that's what I did last year was 30. So we'll see.
You can do it. I believe in you.
I do. I feel much better. I did this weekend. I did um a 13-mile ruck with a group up here that I'd never rucked with before, and they were actually said that out of the group I was like one of the stronger ruckers, and I'm like, not to sound bad, then you must all suck because I'm not good at this. But
That's hilarious.
But it's one of those, I mean, I felt good, and I know rocking is like a whole different, but I was trying to get ready for that, extra weight of carrying stuff going through the mountains. Cause when you're doing the CISO, you got to have everything with you. It's all self-assisted. So I'm just trying to, get ready for that because I figure most of them I'm not going to be running up and down the mountain. I'm going to be hiking most of it and doing all that to keep moving. So I think I'm feeling good about it. I think I got the right socks finally. I got Injinjis. Freaking love them. I thought I would hate them, but I actually really like them. They're cushy. They keep me from getting the blisters in between my toes, which is where I've been getting them the last couple of years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's the reason why I switched those. I was trying to figure out because I got to a point where I wasn't getting blisters anywhere but right in between my toes.
Oof.
Like after North Carolina, my whole pinky toe was pretty much just one giant blister.
Yikes.
So I've been using the Injinjis since then, and it keeps my toes from rubbing together. And I think part of what it is having the shoes that I have. I have my brain just went dead. The Lone Pines.
Weeks.
Yeah, the Lone Peaks, the Ultras. The toe box is so wide that it gives my toes ability to move.
Okay, yeah.
And
I raced all weekend in Lone Peaks.
So, and I end up rubbing my toes together and I get blisters. And I think that the having the injingies with the toe socks that they keep me from doing that. So I found something to keep me from getting those blisters, which is one of the problems I had last year. So hopefully that I fixed that issue. I made sure that my shoes are not going to wear out like they did last year. They're pretty new, but they've also been broken in.
Good.
So I did both. I did the shoes that I used for the Ultra in North Carolina. Plus I've done some hikes around here wearing them. So.
Awesome.
So there's probably, I mean, including the Ultra, because I used one pair for one lap and the other pair for the second lap, there's probably at least, I would say, 50 or 60 miles on both pairs. So, so that'll be good. So I think I'm more prepared for this year, and I'm bringing a lot less. I think every year I bring way too much crap just in case, but I can't because I got to fly up there. So I can only take what I can put in my suitcase.
That's so funny. I literally only brought a backpack this weekend to Michigan. Like I wore sweats onto the plane, knowing I was going straight to the hotel. I brought 2 changes of race clothes. And then I was like, well, I'm going to get a t-shirt at the race, bring, a couple changes of undergarments, throw on the sweats, get back on the plane.
Yeah.
I brought 1 pair of Lone Peaks, which is unheard of for me because usually, and I really did actually need a second pair of shoes, but my feet held up okay, like blister wise. I was just having some like toe cramping on my like first short lap. Or no, I had the toe cramping on the last of my long laps. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, try the short lap. And then I think because of the toe spasming, I compensated just enough to start getting knee pain. And then I had horrible knee pain on that first short lap. And then I took some Excedrin that kind of subsided a little bit and was fine. But like had I had a change of shoes, I probably could have mitigated the toe cramping. But like I didn't really even need to go to a grocery store because again, I was flying in so late at night. I couldn't really pick up anything. I managed to find like a Meijer or something that opened up at 6 a.m. right down the road from the venue. So I picked up like a thing of water, a bottle of Coke, some ham or some of those like protein pack ham things and some watermelon. And like that was it. And then I had all of my race fuel. I had bought like a little sleeve of Oreos. I bought like a sharing size peanut butter M&Ms. And then I had enough of the squeezable apple sauces that I could bring on the plane. And like majority of my backpack was full of race fuel. And then like a tiny little like one thing of everything I would put in a first aid kit. And like I was good.
Yeah.
And it worked. Like again, the shoes were the only problem. But I didn't want to pay for the horrendous baggage fees for Spirit. I didn't need to bring my computer. I didn't need to bring a book. I downloaded a book onto my phone that I read on the plane.
Yeah. We've got, because I have like one of the, what was a couple of years ago when they had the Spartan like workout bags or whatever that are actually decent sized duffel bags that you can use like a backpack. So what I've done is I've filled that with everything I need for the race, and that's going into my suitcase. And then
Good.
the rest of the crap that I need is going to go outside of the suitcase. So because when we get to Seattle, of course, my daughter's going to pick us up, and my Jeep is still in Seattle, parked at her house.
Oh, perfect.
So we're going to go there, get my Jeep, and then I have everything in that backpack, basically the Spartan duffel backpack thing, and that's everything I'm going to have for the race.
Yeah,
And
and then
then,
just stop at a grocery store.
well, and that's it. Because there's a Walmart right next to her house, and I have the app, and I can just get everything set up. So when I get there, I can just walk in, pick up the bag that they pre-pulled for me, and out I go. So,
Perfect.
because we'll get in there Friday, and then the race is Saturday morning. That'll give us time to have everything ready. So I get up Saturday morning, go there, and then also because it's a team thing, I've had a Zoom call with my team, and they're going to grab a couple things that are harder to find. Like I really like the honey, honey and peanut butter Uncrustables. So
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
so
and I'm sure if you really needed anything else, like you could order it and get it sent to like your daughter's house
yeah,
or
and that's what I'll
your
probably end up doing. I'm
teacher's
gonna look at a
house.
few things.
Yeah.
Have maybe sent to her house so that I can grab them. Because I have like from doing all the events, I have I think 4 different like headlamps. So I
Yeah.
figure I'll just grab a couple so I don't have to worry about batteries. Just make sure they're charged and ready to go. So if one dies, I'll have the other one in my pack.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Order a spare package of batteries just in case.
Mhm.
And Whatever you
So
don't need, you can leave at her place.
it's kind of refreshing too to have that whole idea, because I mean that was always been my biggest thing. Whenever I do this race, I have like a huge wagon that I would fill with crap, push it into the
Yep.
car, and then take it with me. And now I'm like, I've got a bag. So luckily,
Yeah.
one of my teammates is also bringing, because I paid for the trailer parking. They're bringing their trailer, so we get kind of an upgrade there. So
Good. That's awesome.
yeah. So it's a great thing, but I mean it's one of those things like the endurance events. That's one of the things I found I'm enjoying the endurance events a lot more than I used to, because I
Yeah.
think it's like you get all that time out on the course rather than like a Spartan. It's like, okay, I go run for, you know, even Sunday in North Carolina, I did the super and the sprint. I was done by 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. When I ran a Spartan Ultra, I finished at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it was like, that's it. I did a sub 8 hour ultra.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, because when I did North Carolina, what we finished at like 4. So I mean, I was slow. I'm obviously slower than you, but still, it was 4 o'clock,
yeah,
4 or 5 o'clock, and it's like, okay, what now?
yeah. I finished after 5 o'clock this past weekend, partially because they started the race 45 minutes late.
Yeah,
Get this. So we got to registration. Registration was supposed to open at 7 a.m. 7 a.m. rolls around. They're nowhere near ready. Then, as we're all standing there, everybody has everything they need for their Infinity. We notice all of the lanes for registration. They only have 2 lanes that have a small sign Infinity registration. We're like, you're starting Infinity at 7:45. It's 7:15, and you're telling us that all hundreds of us who need to register can only go through 2 lanes?
yeah,
You should have Infinity registrants at every single lane, get them through first before any regular mutters have to come through.
yeah. And see, I think that's what happened in Seattle. I think they had it where it was like Infinity, we could register at like, I think it was 6 or 6:30, and then nobody else could start registering till after 7.
Yeah. Or like open up registration the night before.
Mhm.
Like something.
Like they do with the Ultra. They have it
Yeah.
the night before. You go there. I've never been able to get it the night before because I'm never there early enough. But still,
45
yeah,
minutes is not enough time
no,
to get in, go through registration, get your pit set up, get warmed up, go to the bathroom, do whatever you need to do, and be at the start line.
yeah, no, not at all.
It was horrible.
Because even when I'm doing like the ultras, because I'm always the one that gets there in the morning. I'm trying to get there, for an ultra that starts at, if it leaves at 7, I want to be there at 5:30. So I have all my stuff, I can get everything ready, and I'm not rushing, so that
Yeah.
I'm not having that whole panic attack like I'm gonna be there in time. So
I got to Oxford at 6 a.m., said, okay, Tim Hortons. I'm in a place that has Tim Hortons. Oh my God, yay, it opens at 6 a.m. Plenty of time. Tim Hortons at 6 a.m. Hey, look, the Meijer right next to it opens at 6 a.m. Let's go in there. Let's get our Tim Hortons. Let's get out to the race venue. I was one of the first cars parked. Said, okay, registration doesn't open till 7. I'm going to get ready in the car. I'm going to put my shoes on, KT tape, whatever I need to. So then when I get out of the car, all I have to do is grab my backpack, go through registration, lay it out, fill my water bottles, go to the bathroom, get warmed up, and go.
yep,
And I was very thankful for that. I got the perfect pit spot again, but not everybody was as lucky. There were people literally wandering up to the start line as they were finishing up their the speech.
yeah,
And
that's
they
not good plan.
started at 8:30. And then they weren't even going to give us credit for that. They said, okay, 8:15 is when we're starting. They started us towards 8:30, and they were going to cut us off at that 8:45 mark instead of giving us that 9 hours. Supposedly, allegedly. I didn't talk to them. I heard that from somebody else.
Well, that would sounds
But
about right though.
their sign was revised to say, of course, we'll close at 5:15, and people are like, you started us at 8:30. It should be 5:30.
Yeah, should be.
Should be.
Interesting.
So I'm sorry that none of that was about training, but that is my
That's
rant.
fine.
And I think it's a rant that really needs to be had because a lot of people in the Tough Mudder community are talking about how they have 0 elite contenders from Tough Mudder events in the US. I haven't looked at the UK stats, but I know at least in the US, there have been no elite contenders. And yeah, it makes me really mad
I
that
can see that.
people who are running Spartans and hitting top 3 overall. Again, congratulations. My problem is not with you. It's with the Tough Mudder criteria and TMHQ and their poor course design.
Yeah. Like you said, I mean, it's one of those things. Why would you have a quarter mile between?
Yeah. So I'm until you cut me off, I might still keep talking about this, but to kind of explain how this course was, when the cutoff to go from the 4.8 and the 10 was, if you would have continued going down instead of turning off to the 4.8, maybe a 1/10 of a mile down was a water station. And it was like a 2-way street. You had to go through past this water station, going down and coming back from the 10 mile. Had they run us down to that water station, because the water station right before that ran out of cups. So like couldn't really get anything out of it because they weren't prepared. So we had like 2 water stations on that 4.8 mile loop, 2, maybe 3. I don't know. At that point, I wasn't counting, but significantly less water. So if they would have at least ran us down to that water station, given us the option to get water, and then looped us around behind the water station, 5 miles would have been the 5 miles. But instead, they had us turn off and cut out that 1/10 of a mile down to the water station and back, that the 10 mile had to go past.
Wow.
That's all they needed to do. They didn't even need to extend or to shorten from the finish to the start, but that would have obviously been what we all would have preferred, because it was a little bit of a trek. Not quite Philly toughest trek, but it was still a good distance.
I can see that being an issue because I know when I've done triathlon, that's been an issue where sometimes all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, you just finished a swim. Your bike's like a quarter mile that way.
Yeah.
And you're in a wetsuit, like, yeah, this is going to be great to run the quarter mile like that way.
Yeah.
I did it one like that where it was like you finished the swim and then your bike was literally like,
Yeah.
and it was like a quarter mile because I can remember I hit my watch as I came out of the water saying I'm going into transition. And by the time I got to my bike, got going, I'd gone almost 3/10 of a mile.
Yeah. We had to go under Mudderhorn twice through transition, and we had a switchback. So you looped around, came under Mudderhorn, switched back into the pit, and then cut out under Mudderhorn again and down and out a good, 1/10 of a mile more to the start line.
Wow.
Yeah. We literally passed like base camp. Saw like where all the staff was eating their food. They had literally everything right there. We were like, yeah, we're just running past all of base camp before we get to the start line.
That seems like great planning.
It was Spartan.
It was. Well, we're definitely over the hour and
I
Dawn's going to
know.
whine, but that's okay. It's been a great conversation though. I mean, normally our conversation is about training, but this has been a little bit about, some of the issues with Tough Mudder, but also the mental health of, dealing with loss. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I needed it.
no, anytime. I mean, yeah, that's a tough one.
And, hopefully somebody who is in a position of power can listen to this and be like, wait, this makes a lot of sense. But also like, Tough Mudder, we don't want you moving the goalpost after the fact.
No.
We want better course design.
Yeah.
A touchdown is always 6 points and then the extra point.
Yeah.
A Spartan 10K is going to count as a Spartan 10K, even if it's 5 or 7 miles.
Yep. Yeah. So fix it.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Awesome.
Great talking to you. I always love talking to you. We'll talk again soon.
Yes. Good luck. I can't wait to hear how Sisu goes.
Oh, I think I'm hoping it's gonna be good. So.
Oh, I am cheering you on.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.